Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling this
Okay.
podcast episode that claims to hold the 5 biblical keys to building a thriving,
Mhm.
lasting marriage.
Wow.
Sounds like a pretty bold promise, right? We're going to unpack those 5 keys and
Yeah.
see if they truly unlock the secrets to a successful,
Right.
faith-based marriage.
It definitely sets a high bar.
Yeah.
From what I've gathered, the episode leans heavily on biblical principles,
Okay.
positioning faith as the bedrock of a flourishing marriage.
Okay, so right from the start, we know this deep dive is going to be exploring marriage through a very specific lens.
Yes.
But before we jump into the 5 keys themselves,
Okay.
I'm curious, what does this episode actually define as a
Right, yeah.
thriving or lasting marriage? Do they give any concrete examples or criteria?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, they don't offer a clear-cut definition.
Hmm.
It's more about painting a picture of a marriage
Yeah.
characterized by unwavering commitment,
Okay.
mutual respect,
Yeah.
and a deep sense of spiritual connection.
I see.
Think less about metrics
Okay.
and more about an overall sense of harmony and shared purpose.
Interesting. So it's more about a feeling or a state of being than checking off specific boxes.
Yeah.
That makes sense, considering their focus on faith.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
What's the first key they present as essential for building this kind of marriage?
The first key they unlock is faithfulness,
Okay.
which they call the bedrock of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And to really drive home its importance, they use a powerful analogy.
Okay.
A marriage without faithfulness is like a house without a foundation.
Okay, I can see how that analogy would resonate.
Right.
A house without a foundation is unstable, vulnerable, easily toppled by storms.
Exactly.
Are they suggesting that even small breaches of trust can have similarly devastating effects on a marriage?
Exactly.
Wow.
They argue that faithfulness is not just about avoiding infidelity.
Right.
It's about establishing a deep and unwavering sense of security and reliability.
Yep.
They even quote Hebrews 13.4, which calls for the marriage bed to be kept pure,
Mm-hmm.
suggesting that faithfulness is intertwined with a sense of sanctity and spiritual purity.
So it's not just about the practical implications of infidelity, but also about honoring a spiritual commitment.
Yes.
I'm starting to see how faith permeates every aspect of their perspective on marriage.
Right.
But speaking of potential conflicts,
Okay.
their second key is one that often sparks debate. Submission.
Right.
How do they navigate this potentially tricky territory?
You're right. Submission is a word loaded with baggage
Yeah.
and open to various interpretations.
For sure.
In this episode, they draw from 1 Peter 3.1,
Okay.
which specifically addresses wives,
Mm-hmm.
encouraging them to submit to their husbands.
Okay.
But it's not about blind obedience
Right.
or silencing one's own voice.
Okay, so there's nuance here.
Yes.
They're not advocating for a power imbalance where one partner dominates the other.
Right.
What's their actual take on what submission should look like in practice?
They frame it as a form of respect and prioritization of the relationship over individual agendas.
Okay.
It's about creating a sense of unity
Yeah.
where both partners are working together
Mm-hmm.
towards shared goals, even if it means occasionally setting aside personal preferences.
Okay.
Think of it as a willingness to compromise
Yeah.
and consider your partner's perspective,
Right.
ultimately striving for harmony rather than a constant battle of wills.
I can see how that approach might resonate with some couples,
Sure.
particularly those who value traditional roles and a clear hierarchy within the marriage.
Yes.
But I imagine it could also raise some eyebrows, especially in a culture that increasingly emphasizes equality and individual autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Have you encountered other interpretations of this biblical passage, perhaps ones that lean towards a more egalitarian model of partnership?
Absolutely. There are many different schools of thought on this verse and on the concept of submission in general.
Yeah.
Some theologians argue that it's about mutual submission,
Okay.
with both partners willingly putting the needs of the other
Right.
and the health of the relationship
Yeah.
above their own desires.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily about one partner always having the final say or
Yeah.
dictating the terms of the relationship.
You got it.
It's more about a shared commitment to finding solutions that work for both parties,
Yes.
even if it requires compromise, and a willingness to let go of the need to be right all the time.
Mm.
I imagine that kind of approach could actually be quite beneficial,
Yeah,
regardless of your religious beliefs, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
The ability to compromise and consider your partner's needs
Yeah.
is a valuable skill in any relationship,
Yeah.
romantic or otherwise.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Yeah.
We're exploring these concepts through a very specific lens, but it's prompting us to think about broader themes that are relevant to all sorts of human interactions.
You hit the nail on the head. And it brings us back to our role here on the deep dive.
Right.
We're not just summarizing the source material.
Yeah.
We're encouraging you to think critically about the ideas presented,
Exactly.
to draw connections to your own experiences,
Oh, yeah.
and perhaps even to challenge your own assumptions.
Exactly.
And speaking of challenging assumptions,
Okay.
let's move on to the third key in their divine blueprint: love and respect.
Right.
How do they differentiate between these two concepts?
Yep.
And what role do they play in fostering a thriving marriage?
Good question.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
While faithfulness and submission lay the groundwork,
Right.
it seems like love and respect are the building blocks that create a truly fulfilling and
Yes.
harmonious partnership.
Mhm.
Let's see how they unpack these essential elements, shall we?
Let's do it. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our exploration of these 5 biblical keys to building a thriving, lasting marriage.
And we've just started to unpack the third key, love and respect, which the episode claims are essential for a truly flourishing partnership.
Yes.
What stood out to you about their take on these seemingly fundamental concepts?
What's fascinating here is that they don't treat love and respect as interchangeable or even equally weighted.
Okay.
They draw a clear distinction,
Right.
using 1 Peter 3.7 to illustrate their point.
Okay.
This verse specifically calls on husbands to love their wives as Christ loved the church.
Yes. I remember thinking this was a powerful comparison.
Yeah.
Christ's love for the church is often portrayed as selfless,
Right.
sacrificial, even unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
Are they suggesting that husbands should strive for that same level of devotion and
Gee.
selflessness in their marriages?
That's exactly what they're getting at.
Wow.
They're proposing that love in a marriage shouldn't be solely based on emotions
Okay.
or fleeting feelings. It should be a conscious choice,
Right.
a commitment to prioritizing your partner's well-being,
Of
even when
course.
it's difficult or inconvenient.
Yeah. So it's about going beyond the honeymoon phase of romance and cultivating a deeper,
Yes.
more enduring form of love that's rooted in action and sacrifice.
Exactly.
But what about respect? Where does that fit into their framework?
They present respect as the counterpart to love,
Okay.
arguing that while husbands are called to love,
Right.
wives are called to respect their husbands. And they emphasize that this respect shouldn't be contingent
Okay.
on the husband's behavior or performance.
Okay.
It's about recognizing his role
Right.
and valuing his contributions to the relationship.
I can see how that perspective might be challenging for some people,
Yeah.
especially those who believe that respect needs to be earned rather than automatically given.
Right.
It seems to tie back to their earlier point about submission,
Yes.
creating a dynamic where the husband is positioned as the leader
Right.
and the wife as the supporter.
You're right. It definitely reflects a more traditional view of marriage.
Yeah.
But even if you don't fully subscribe to that model,
Right.
there's still something to be gleaned from their emphasis on respect.
Okay.
After all, feeling respected and valued by your partner is crucial in any relationship,
Right.
regardless of gender roles or religious beliefs.
Absolutely. And it makes me wonder if perhaps they're using submission and respect
Yeah.
as ways to describe the same underlying principle.
Right.
The importance of recognizing and honoring your partner's strengths and contributions, even if they differ from your own.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about adhering to rigid roles,
Right.
but about finding a dynamic that allows both partners to feel appreciated and supported.
I see.
Perhaps it's about creating an environment where both love and respect
Okay.
can flourish organically.
I like that. It's about shifting the focus from who's in charge
Yeah.
to how we can create a more harmonious and fulfilling partnership.
Right.
And speaking of fulfilling partnerships,
Yes.
let's move on to their fourth key, intimacy.
Okay.
How do they approach this often delicate and sometimes even taboo topic?
What's interesting about their take on intimacy is that they frame it
Okay.
as a gift from God, specifically designed to strengthen the bond between husband and wife.
Right.
They reference 1 Corinthians 7.3-5,
Okay.
where it emphasizes the importance of fulfilling each other's needs within the context of marriage.
Okay, so they're not shying away from the physical aspects of intimacy,
Yeah.
but they're also positioning it within a spiritual framework.
Yes.
They're suggesting that it's not just about pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
but about deepening connection and honoring a sacred covenant.
Exactly. And even go a step further,
Okay.
arguing that honoring this gift within marriage
Right.
is a way to protect the relationship
Mhm.
from external temptations
Okay.
and to strengthen commitment.
Okay.
They seem to be suggesting that intimacy is a force
Right.
that can unify and safeguard the marriage.
Now, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It seems like they're weaving a narrative where intimacy, when approached with reverence and intention,
Right.
becomes a source of strength and resilience.
Yes.
Rather than something that could potentially lead to conflict or instability.
Exactly.
I can see how that could be a powerful message for couples seeking to deepen their bond
Right.
and weather the inevitable storms that life throws their way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also curious about how they address the challenges
Okay.
that many couples face when it comes to intimacy.
Right.
Do they acknowledge that maintaining a fulfilling and vibrant intimate life
Yeah.
can be a lifelong journey that requires communication, effort, and sometimes even professional guidance?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And while they don't explicitly delve into those complexities,
Okay.
they do emphasize the importance of open communication
Right.
and seeking God's guidance in all aspects of the marriage,
Mm.
including intimacy.
Okay. So while they might not provide a detailed roadmap
Yeah.
for navigating the intricacies of a long-term intimate relationship,
Right.
they're at least hinting at the importance of ongoing effort
Yeah.
and a willingness to seek support when needed.
Right.
And that brings us to their final key,
Okay.
the one they claim holds everything together, keeping God at the center of the marriage.
This fifth principle is perhaps the most straightforward, but also the most revealing.
Okay.
It's a culmination of all the previous keys,
Right.
suggesting that without a shared faith,
Mhm.
without God as the guiding force,
Right.
the other principles are essentially built on shaky ground.
So for them, it all comes back to faith.
Yes.
They're arguing that a thriving, lasting marriage is one that's not just built on human effort
Right.
and good intentions, but on a foundation of shared spiritual beliefs.
Exactly.
And this raises a fascinating question for me.
Okay.
How did they suggest couples actually go about keeping God at the center of their marriage?
Yeah.
Is it just about praying together and attending church? Or is there something more to it? Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of 5 biblical keys to building a thriving, lasting marriage,
Okay.
and currently pondering how couples can actually keep God at the center of their relationship.
Right.
Is it as simple as just praying together?
Well, while shared prayer and church attendance are certainly part of their suggestion,
Okay.
they propose a much deeper integration of faith into the fabric of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They argue that it's about viewing every decision,
Right.
every challenge, every joy through a spiritual lens.
Okay, so it's not just about outward rituals,
Right.
but about an inner transformation that affects how you approach every aspect of your life together.
Yes.
They're basically saying that a God-centered marriage isn't something you do, it's
Yeah.
something you become.
Exactly. It's about aligning your values and priorities with your faith,
Okay.
allowing it to inform how you communicate,
Right.
how you resolve conflicts, how you celebrate victories, and how you support each other through tough times.
It's like they're saying that by inviting God into your marriage, you're not just gaining spiritual support,
Right.
but also a framework for navigating the complexities of human relationships.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They believe that relying on God's guidance provides a sense of stability
Mm-hmm.
and purpose that can help couples weather the inevitable storms that life throws their way.
So it's not about avoiding challenges,
Right.
but about facing them with a shared faith that provides strength and resilience.
Obviously.
Okay.
They argue that a God-centered marriage is better equipped to handle adversity
Mm-hmm.
because it's not solely reliant on human effort or understanding.
Right.
There's a sense of surrendering to a higher power,
Okay.
of trusting that even when things are tough,
Yeah.
there's a bigger plan at play.
It's a perspective that might resonate deeply with those who share their faith.
Yes.
But I'm also wondering how these principles might translate for couples who come from different spiritual backgrounds or who don't identify with any particular religion.
Yeah.
Is there a way to adapt this idea of a shared center
Right.
to encompass a broader range of beliefs and values?
That's a really thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to one of the core goals of the deep dive.
Right.
We're not just here to present you with information,
Yeah.
but to encourage you to think critically,
Yeah.
to make connection,
Yeah.
and to extract insights that are relevant to your own life and experiences.
Exactly. And while this particular deep dive has explored marriage through a very specific lens,
Right.
the underlying principles of trust, respect, communication, shared purpose,
Yes,
these are universal elements that contribute to any healthy, fulfilling relationship.
absolutely. Whether you find your shared center in faith,
Right.
shared values, common goals, or a deep emotional connection,
Mm-hmm.
the key is to have that foundation of mutual understanding and support.
It's about creating a space where both partners feel seen,
Yes.
heard, and valued.
Hmm.
A space where you can be yourselves,
Right.
go together,
Yeah.
and navigate the ups and downs of life as a team.
Beautifully said. And that's what makes this deep dive so valuable.
Yeah.
Even if you don't necessarily align with every single point they make,
Right.
it prompts us to reflect on our own relationships,
Mm-hmm.
to consider what's working,
Yeah.
what might need attention,
Right.
and how we can create a more fulfilling and meaningful partnership.
So as we wrap up our exploration of these 5 biblical keys,
Okay?
I want to leave you with this thought. Whether you embrace their framework wholeheartedly
Mm-hmm.
or simply glean a few nuggets of wisdom,
Right.
the most important takeaway is the intentionality.
Yeah.
It's about actively choosing to invest in your relationship,
Right.
to cultivate those qualities that foster connection,
Mm-hmm.
and to build a foundation that can withstand the tests of time.
Well said. It's about recognizing that a thriving, lasting relationship doesn't just happen by chance.
Mhm.
It requires effort, communication, and a willingness to keep learning and growing together no matter what life throws your way.
And on that note, we'll conclude our deep dive into 5 biblical keys to building a thriving, lasting marriage.
Okay.
We hope this exploration has provided some food for thought,
Yes.
sparked some interesting conversations,
Mhm.
and perhaps even inspired you to approach your own relationships with renewed intention
Right.
and a deeper understanding of what it truly takes to build a lasting connection.
As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you? What questions did it spark?
Yeah.
Share your insights in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Yeah.
Keep exploring and keep
Mhm.
seeking those nuggets of wisdom that
Yeah.
help you navigate this crazy, beautiful thing called life.
Right.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.